السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى وسلم على سيدنا محمد، سيدنا وسندنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا، صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته وأهل بيته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So we continue from where we left off yesterday, with the added note that it was my mistake. Last night wasn't actually the Laylatul Nisf Sha'ban, but it is tonight. According to the local moon sighting, tonight is the night of mid Sha'ban. So whoever wishes to spend it in worship and seek its barakat, let them do so. And we had some talk about it, about the position of it within Islam and within the madhab, even with the difference between the Imam Malik and the earlier mashayikh and the later ones. So you can go to yesterday's video, inshallah, or audio, depending on how you consume this dars, and you can listen to all of that again, with the difference that today there is, it's going to be tonight. I had mistaken it for last night, but it's not last night, it's tonight. So we continue with Ibn Abi Zayd's enumeration of the different types of ill-gotten wealth and haram wealth that a person must abstain from. And the last thing we mentioned was gambling. And paired with gambling, the sister, I guess, violation of gambling is al-gharar. And gharar is what? Gharar, with regards to transactions, has to do with uncertainty. And so the fuqaha mentioned there's a little bit of uncertainty which is tolerated because of necessity from a transaction, in the sense that, for example, like if someone asked a question of how do I know that this can of Pepsi is going to be as sweet as the last can I purchased from you, that much is tolerated. If there's a problem, then it can be sorted out. But there are a class of transactions that are forbidden in the Sharia with regards to gharar, with regards to uncertainty, which is fahish, it's excessive, that are not tolerated from the Sharia. So for example, if someone says, I'll sell you the birds that are in the air over my land, or I'll sell you the fish that are in this pond, or I'll sell you whatever's in this box, it might be one of three things, or it might be even one of two things, but you don't know exactly what it is. That transaction isn't useful. And the idea is that the thaman and mathmoon need to be ma'loom. The thaman is the price that's being paid, and the mathmoon is the thing that the price is being paid for. Both of them need to be known in the Sharia. The Sharia does not accept that a person should transact in an unknown quantity with an unknown quantity. And even with regards to the small amount of gharar which is tolerated by the Sharia, it's tolerated only because of necessity. So in those situations where gharar or uncertainty is unnecessary, where it can be very clearly defined what exactly is being bought and what exactly is being sold, that is then mandated by the Shara of Allah Ta'ala, because it makes the transaction useful, and it reduces disputes between people, and it keeps harmony in the population and amongst one another. And the whole point of business and the whole point of transaction is supposed to be islah and masalih for the ibad, for the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Somebody has too much of something but not enough of another, and so the whole point of transaction is that people should beneficially transact with one another in order to make a living for themselves and to get the things that they don't have in order to make a better life for themselves. And so the problematic and predatory type of transactions, where people rip each other off, where one side benefits and the other side doesn't, where people are resentful of one another, these types of transactions are completely muharram. They're proscribed and prohibited by the sacred law, and one can understand and see why. And the problem is that there's a large class of transactions in the Sharia that are prohibited, that people will engage in nowadays. So, for example, what's a transaction of gharar that is very fahish, like widespread, is insurance, that a person should pay a set amount of money, so that premiums that you're paying are well known. That you pay a well-known and well-defined premium, a certain amount of money every month, or a certain amount of money every year, or every 6 months, or whatever, for an insurance that you don't know how much it's going to pay out. And it's problematic for two reasons. One is that the payout, you don't know how much it's going to be. And the other problem is that it's paying money for another amount of money. So if you knew how much they were going to pay you, it's going to be problematic, unless it's exactly the same amount of money that you paid into it, in which case it becomes from the class of transactions that are loans, and those have their own stipulations and their own set of laws that deal with them. And if you're getting a different amount of money out, that you pay one amount of money and you get a different amount of money out, then it's riba. And the fact that you don't know how much money you're going to get out of it is gharar. So it's a very haram transaction for a number of reasons. Now, the question comes up is that, well, people use insurance for reasons that are very beneficial and that are very necessary. And so if you want to cut out, insurance from the marketplace, there are a number of transactions that cannot be dependably executed. And it's not that the Muslims didn't have an idea of insurance. In fact, Muslims were transacting with insurance and with risk mitigation, far before the Europeans had any system in place to do so. At least like the post-Roman world. I don't know about the Romans, but the Middle Ages, we had ships that would go, and traders that would send shiploads of merchandise from one place to the other. If a ship sinks, it would wipe out an entire business, even if the owner was quite wealthy. So you had like pools of merchants that would pool their money together in order to mitigate loss and to keep themselves afloat, so that one catastrophe wouldn't wipe out a person completely. But the idea is that people used to do those functions not as a way of making money. And this is where it's important. This is where it's important. It is permissible to have insurance in the Sharia, and it is actually a good idea in many cases to have insurance in the Sharia, but it is not permissible to use it as a way of making money. And so the model of takaful, of like guarantorship, that worked in the past and can still work, and works in other countries right now currently, and still can work in any marketplace, whether it's Muslim or otherwise, and can work in the United States of America as well, is that you have an insurance, and then you have people who pay premiums into a pot, and then that pot of money is used to pay out claims, but on a non-profit basis. So what does it mean that it's a non-profit basis? It means that whatever money is put into that pool at the end of the year, or at the end of whatever time period is ordained, whatever money is in excess of what is necessary in order to keep that that pool running, it has to be paid back to those people who paid their premiums out. And oftentimes insurance is much more sophisticated than that. The money doesn't just sit as cash in a bank account, but it's invested out and things like that. And all of that is okay. There's nothing wrong with any of that. To run these transactions in as beneficial and as profitable of a way as possible is a good thing. But at the end of the day, you're allowed to take money from that pool in order to pay the administrators, to pay the accountants, to pay the IT people, to pay all those people who run and administer this account, and you pay out the claims that are valid according to the charter of that insurance that people sign up for. But nobody can profit from it as a business. You can have officers and administrators that get paid a salary for doing the work that they do, but it cannot be a for-profit business. And we have insurances of that type already functioning in the United States. And that class of insurances that follow a type of a type of model that's similar to this, I'm told, are called mutual insurance. I'm not like the biggest finance expert in the world, nor is this meant to be a really high level dars about the functioning of Islamic finance in the modern marketplace. But this is so that you can understand what the basic issue is. And you can understand that in general there are principles, then how those principles are applied in real life. They take on multiple forms that are in ever branching and ever increasing possibilities of complexity and difference. But the usul, the universal principles on which they're based, are a few, and you just have to understand them. That riba is haram and gharar is haram, and you can't use them to make money. Because what is the hukum in the book is that to eat from that, to eat from profiting from gharar, from uncertainty in transaction, it's impermissible. Because people should know what they're doing. They should know what they're getting into. They should know what they're paying. They should know what they're paying for, and they should know what they're getting out. Otherwise, the intelligent will take advantage of the unintelligent, or the people who have superior means in order to know what's going on will take advantage of those of less means. And that's exactly, you have this complete marketplace where you have all sorts of messed up transactions. You have weird, for example, the subprime mortgage lending scandal. What was part of it? Part of it is that you have a variable rate that you have to pay back to the lender, and you don't even know what you have no idea what that rate is. And other than the riba side of the unlawfulness and problematicness of those transactions, you have this whole other issue of what is that there are people who have better credit are getting fixed rate loans. So even though the riba is an exploitative process, but its exploitation is mitigated by the fact that the people who are paying for those loans, they know exactly how much they're paying. Whereas on the flip side, people are signing up and they see the initial rates that they have to pay on those variable rate mortgages. And then thereafter, those they go astronomical, they flip into the sky, and the person who's getting the transaction isn't expecting that it's going to be like that, but it ends up being like that when they read the fine print, because they essentially signed for something they didn't know what they were getting into, and that's because they didn't read the fine print. Someone can say, "Well, I should have read the fine print." Well, even if you read the fine print in many of these transactions, there's no way you can know what's going on. And further than that, and worse than that, you have things like derivatives and short sales, and these types of things where you're neither transacting in any real property, you're just using money to massage more money out of money, and you're essentially, they call them bets. They're saying, well, we're hedging this bet with this bet, et cetera, et cetera. And it's as if people don't even pretend that some of those things are just gambling. And a short sale is betting that something will go down, and if it does go down, then that person will that person that you get the short sale with, that person will pay out to you, etc. These types of transactions, they don't provide any sort of meaningful benefit to society, and they are very prone to being unpredictable in a way that is very harmful for the marketplace. And there are some people who are in a position to benefit, but those people are, generally speaking, people who have an unfair advantage over others. So the whole principle of distributing risk in an equitable fashion between different parties to a business in a way that people's risk is commensurate with their ability to profit, that principle is completely thrown out the window. And so gharar is very problematic for that reason. It's very problematic for that reason. This much gharar is not tolerated by the Sharia. And one of the problems is that, look, as Muslims, we have a lot of very wealthy people. We have a lot of very talented people. We have a lot of people who are very successful in different spheres of life. And many of them are trying to give khutbahs and give their advice about deen. Leave those things for the ulama. If you're a doctor, develop a flu vaccine that doesn't have pork in it, or develop vaccines that don't have najasa in them. Make sure that this COVID vaccine, when it comes out, that it doesn't have the protein of unslaughtered animals in it. Make heparin, the blood thinner for people that's not derived from a porcine source. Develop treatments for Muslims that are complementary to our ethical and our legal tradition. If you're a lawyer, work on getting wills that are recognized, or marriage contracts that are recognized, that will protect people in their Islam when those marriages fall apart, or in the case of a dispute when it comes to a court that otherwise wouldn't recognize the deen. If you're in the business world, get that know-how together and get a mutual insurance going. And I'll switch my car insurance. I have to have car insurance in order to drive, and I don't like giving the money to Geico or Esurance or State Farm or Allstate or any of these other haram khor, type companies. I don't want to do business with them. I'd rather do with Al-Amana and Al-Baraka and At-Tawakkul, whatever, Takaful Limited. I'd rather do business with you guys. Make investments that I can put my money, that I can sink my money into. There's so many things that we need to do. And I'm not saying do it fi sabilillah. Alhamdulillah, all of you make these businesses and get paid from them, make money from them. I'm the one, inshallah. You can always ask me, you can always text me or email me, and if I'm not half asleep or running from pillar to post and open the message and then forget about it or make some mistake, I'll answer you for free, inshallah. I'll help you out for free. The rest of you, go out there and make money, be successful in the world. Run it so well, run your insurance so well, and make it so efficient. And since it's nonprofit, make it cheaper so it can compete with all of these kind of fake money massaging cheaters out there that are just basically yakuluna amwal an-nas bil batil. They're consuming the wealth of the qawm in batil, and selling risk or selling gambling for nothing. Do better than them, because the fundamentals on which these things are based in our deen are more solid than the mavalim and the transgressions that other people are based on. Instead of everyone trying to do a khutbah workshop and then saying, oh, I'm going to give a khutbah about the Black Panther this week or whatever nonsense type of things, leave that for the people who spent more than 5 hours on daraba yadribu. And the rest of you work to apply the deen, learn the facets of the deen that apply to your field, and work to bring that up to a sacred standard as well. Someone might say, oh, well, look at this guy. He's trying to be all territorial and keep people out and preserve his authority and keep people out of his sphere of the deen. And I'm not trying to be that at all. I mean, hey, man, you want to be sheikh? Be my guest. If you study hard for 3 years, 4 years, you'll know more than I will, and I'll take a back seat. But if you want to take the riasa, the leadership of this ummah in your ilm, then actually go learn something. Instead of opening instead of taking a khutbah workshop and then starting to comment on everybody else's Facebook and reading some posts and regurgitating some sound bites and things like that, go actually learn something. I didn't learn all that much. It won't take you that much long to learn more than me. Go ahead and learn something. I myself will say, okay, I'll take whatever some college course and go get a corporate job. You guys can then be the people who are the guardians of the ilm. Nothing would make me happier than walking into a masjid of 1,000 people and being the one who's the least learned in the Sharia. I would sit at the feet of every one of them and try to learn something from them. And if I could make a normal living without having, waking up in the morning with like whatever 100 WhatsApps about Sheikh, my cat, like, accidentally tripped and fell into a well and swam in it for 5 minutes. And then we made wudu from that. And then whatever, like instead of having to do, you guys go ahead and deal with it, inshallah, learn all of those things and deal with them. One of the things, by the way, many people will complain about the bad akhlaq, quote unquote, of many scholars when asked questions. And maybe some of you have experienced this also with me, that I'm like kind of like shifty. If you ask a question, I'm avoiding it, or it takes me a long time, or I don't give a clear answer or whatever. A part of that is like you guys ask really hard questions, mashallah. And like in order to look up the answer of certain questions, if I'm lucky, it'll take me an hour. I'll look up the answer to the question and find it. And if I realize in that process that something I said in the past was wrong, I'll be happy to be like, yeah, I was wrong. And if you're like, what kind of sheikh is this? He doesn't even know how to answer. Then go find someone more learned and bother them, inshallah, and tell me who they are so I can go bother them as well. One of the reasons that oftentimes mashayikh like have a weird look in their face when you ask them questions, because people ask them really hard questions. And if you're lucky, you'll know where to look the answer up. If you're not lucky, you'll be looking just to see what book the answer will be in, because you don't know. So it would make me happy if other people were there to be able to do those types of things. At least in the old days, mashallah, there was a quote that Mullah Uwais Namazi, our good friend from, I guess he was from Blackburn at one point, and now he sold out and moved to London, so shame on you. But very learned brother, learned in Arabic. His Arabic is amazing. His Persian is amazing. His Urdu is chaste, mashallah. Very well-read person. And a person of enough eccentricity to be interesting, but not so much as to jump off the bus of sanity. And a person I really have a lot of love for, and I have a lot of respect for. He mentioned actually and if you saw him on the beautiful thing, if you saw him on the street, you would have no idea. If I had my right, I would, if I was Sultan, I'd force him to wear like a 13-yard turban just so that people will respect his knowledge. He had a post about with an excerpt from, I believe it was Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, who said that the sustaining of knowledge in society is a fard, and it needs to be funded, right? So you can have all these kind of pious people who are like people who read a little bit of fiqh, but really mainly are more khanqahi Sufi, like tremble in the fear of God type of people. And because they see that nobody else is actually like serving this ilm, so then they feel like, okay, we'll stand and take the kifaya off of the ummah, and we'll serve this ilm as much as possible. What's the problem? Many of them are not, super in a position to be able to do that, because in order to like answer a question properly, it requires a lot of books, it requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of effort, it requires a lot of energy. And if you don't have like a gainful means of livelihood, then that process can get botched. So Abu Mansur al-Maturidi said that it's a responsibility of the ummah to support these people. It's a wajib. It's like not just like an ethical responsibility, like, oh look, I'll buy organic and cage free when I have the money. No, it's actually like a wajib on the ummah. It's a commandment, an obligation communally on the ummah to support these people. And if the qawm refuses, then it's not far-fetched to say that they, just like the sultan has the right to fight them to take the money of zakat if they refuse to pay zakat, just like that the sultan has the right to by coercion take that money out in order to be able to support this class of people. Obviously, I don't have the sultan. I'm not in a position to coerce anybody, nor do I want to. I'm a nice guy, whether you believe it or not. I am a very nice guy, alhamdulillah, mashallah. I'm so nice. You never knew anyone as nice as me. I'm big nice. I'm like huge nice. Like anyway. But the point is that without regards to our personal scenarios and situations right now, this is a sound thing, a sound concept, and if it's not implemented, which it's not in the day and age we live in, you're gonna get like a second-rate scholarship. So if you if you think Mullah is being testy and trying to preserve his own little his own little sphere of authority or whatever, take glad tidings and good news that I'm not trying to preserve anything for myself, inshallah. If you go and you actually bother to learn Arabic and bother to read the books of the tradition and bother to read hadith better than I did, which is not, it won't involve a whole lot of effort, to be very frank with you, then I'd be happy to surrender whatever little authority on whatever little hill I stand on to you. In the meanwhile, the rest of us, let us learn the knowledge that is relevant to what we're doing in our lives, and let's apply it, because you cannot build a civilization on khatibs. You can't build a civilization on YouTube stars. You can't build a civilization on 100,000 people who each have 100,000 followers on Twitter. You can't do it. It's not going to work. You need people from every facet of life that are good at what they do and who implement what they do in conformation conformance to the sacred law, so that the barakat from the higher realm and the blessings and the rahmat and the nur and the ruhaniya and the fuyud, the light and the spirituality and the spiritual effluence of the upper realm can flow into the lower realm and irrigate our fields and be what we see and what we hear and what we eat and what we drink and what we live by and what we, by Allah's fadl, inshallah, one day die by. So gharar is not cool. Inshallah, my brothers and sisters work on mitigating our gharar in transactions. Barakallahu fikum. Well, ghish is just outright deception. One of the meanings of the word ghish is what? It's diddul ikhlas. It's to not have other people's well-being in mind, or to wish harm to another person. When you have ikhlas for a person, you wish good for them. You're there well-wisher, khair khah, right? You're a person who wishes khair and good for the other person. And so the opposite of that is ghish. And so ghish in the context of transactions is to fool another person, or to portray your wares or what you're paying for as one thing, and they're actually something else. If it was known by the one that transaction was being foisted on, what the reality of that thing is, that person would not have transacted that way, using counterfeit money in order to buy something, or selling something that it says itself counterfeit or fake or defective or second rate or whatever. And our forefathers, the aslaf, the companions and the righteous and pious from the beginning of this ummah, many of them were merchants. Even our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a merchant, but they never sold second quality goods. They never sold garbage, crappy quality goods. In fact, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah tabarak wa ta'ala, he had a store in Kufa, and it was very, very successful. And he was a khazaz. He had the best cloth. Khaz is I believe a mixture between wool and silk that made a really fine cloth. And he sold the best khaz in all of Kufa, and he made a lot of money doing it. And he spent it on his students. He spent huge amounts of wealth on his students, so that this knowledge could survive. And I know, mashallah, there are many haters out there who are like, oh, look, Desi Molana Saab from Deobandi Madrasa, what kind of Maliki is he? He's a faker Hanafi. He talks about Abu Hanifa half the time anyway, right? Well, I have a salaf in this as well. Look how does Hafiz ibn Abdul Bar talk about Abu Hanifa. Look how the Mashayikh talk about look how Malik rahimahullah ta'ala described Abu Hanifa, despite having rigorous disagreements with both his fiqh and his methodology. He said, this man, this Kufan, is such a genius that if you were to make a claim that pillar over there is made out of solid gold, and obviously nobody would think it is. It's obviously not made out of it. But if he was to say it was solid gold, he would have brought a proof for his claim as well, that people would not be able to deal with, they wouldn't be able to shut down. And mashallah, Abu Hanifa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him for so many services he did for this ummah that are irreplaceable by anybody else. One of them is, what is he had a lot of money, and he spent a lot of money in order to make sure that this deen works and it functions, and like the I's are dotted and the Q's are crossed with regards to this deen and the fiqh that he came up with. Whether or not we agree with it all the time, we have to accept the fact that that is the madhab on which empires were built, on which caliphates and sultanates ran. The only two, the two madhab that I would say majority. It's not true that the only two, but the majority of the states that ran in the Muslim world ran either on the Maliki fiqh or on the Hanafi fiqh. And far more on the latter than the former. Why? Because he took time to learn. He took time to teach. Other people were doing other things, and he was, as a grown adult male who was already a sheikh, still spending his time sitting at the feet of those who had more knowledge than him, until he came to a point where he amassed a huge amount of ilm. And he would literally, he would employ, if a student was a promising student, he would employ that student. Qadi Abu Yusuf, who was the first Qadi al-Qudat, the first Chief Justice of the Caliphate, he was the son of a farmer, and his father sent him to Abu Hanifa's halaqah to go learn for a while, and then afterward he yoinked him out and said, "Hey, we gotta work the fields, otherwise we're gonna go hungry." Abu Hanifa says, "How much will it cost to hire a day laborer for you for a week in order to work the fields with you instead of him?" And so Qadi Abu Yusuf's father, he said X amount. He's like, here it is. Next week, come back and get the next week's wages from me. Just let him study. And Abu Yusuf, during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, becomes literally the second most important person in the entire, the political life of the entire ummah after Harun al-Rashid, the Khalifa himself, which is amazing, because he's an alim. He's a scholar of deen. He's a scholar of deen. And this level of implementation of the divine law from above, which is unconcerned with petty, rodent-like desire to gather more and more money, food, material things, unconcerned with them, and concerned with what? Establishing the celestial order of what's above, the clean and pure and spiritual order of what's above in a way that's below, so that we can preserve this world, and we can preserve the living things on this world, whether they be human, whether they be animals, whether they be plants, whether it be the air, the water, the soil, whatever it is, that we can preserve and protect all of them from injustice and from dhulm, and from oppression, and from tajawuz an hududillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, from crossing the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that everybody can live happily, and we can return this amana, this trust that was given to us, in a form better than what was given to us. And it can be a matter of pride on the Day of Judgment that Allah Ta'ala, if He says, "I made you Khalifa in my work, in my creation, what did you do with it?" They can say, "Ya Allah, this is what we did. We couldn't ensure that it was perfect, but we at least made sure that the poor were fed. We at least made sure that the criminals were locked up. We at least made sure that we tried our best to bring justice into this world, so that people could be free to remember you, those who wish to and those who are heedless, that they cannot point a finger at anybody else other than themselves for that." And we can't say that nowadays. Hiroshima and Nagasaki got the atomic bomb. The coral reefs are all being bleached. There's a hole in the ozone layer. There are majestic and beautiful whales that are beaching up with like kilograms of plastic being pulled out of their stomachs. There are microfibers in almost every fish in the ocean. Animals are going extinct by the day. And a virus hits us, and the earth is actually doing better because of it. And that's not a good state of affairs to be in. And like, that's awesome that there's like iPhones and like Boeing 737s in the air. The Supermax may not be flying, but the other ones at least are flying. Alhamdulillah, it's better than getting around on a camel. I get all of that. You're watching a dars on YouTube, woo, right? That's great. That's wonderful. Fi sabilillah, mashallah. Look how pious, mashallah, you are for listening, and how pious I am for talking. Allah Ta'ala correct us for correct our mistakes, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala forgive us for not rendering these things in the quality that this sacred knowledge deserves. But the point is what is that was only possible. That was only possible. Why? Because he spent on his students from the government's money. No, much of those students, many of them were studying in the time of the collapse of Banu Umayyah, or before Banu Abbas got its bearings together. They spent their own money. They're wealthy people. They spent their own money in proliferating this knowledge. وَهُوَ تِجَارَةٌ لَن تَبُورْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. That was clean money, halal money, and clean intentions from clean and pure people. And that seed, they planted it in the ground and it became a tree. Inshallah, the trees that our aslaf and our mashayikh planted will keep giving fruit until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Even though the masajid that we build, people are getting the fist fights in them, but the tree that our aslaf planted, it will give fruit until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And if we don't have anything to show on that day, at least we can scramble and look for them and grab onto their feet, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exalt their rank and give them the maqam that they deserve, that they should be the fakhrul umam, not just the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wal khadi'atu wal khilabatu, and what is haram to eat by is khadi'a and khilaba. Khadi'a and khilaba are two synonyms, and they describe what? They describe kissing up to people and being fake with them in order to get a position with them, or in order to get some favor or something with them. That's also a haram, and that's also a type of batil, and people should avoid it. Khadi'a is what? It's a type of deception. يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخادعون إلا أنفسهم وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم. Both of them are qira'at. The first is Nafi' and the second is Asim. And the people of nifaq, of hypocrisy, are those who cheat or try to deceive the people, deceive Allah and the people who believe, and they don't deceive anybody except for themselves. But they don't. وَلَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They don't know. They don't know. They think that they're getting away with some deception, but all they're doing is they're cheating themselves. وحرم الله سبحانه وتعالى أكل الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغير الله به وما ذبح لغير الله. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the flesh of terrestrial animals, has made haram meta, anything that dies on its own without being slaughtered ritually. And it's interesting that even in the Quran itself, this is part of the literary style of Arabic, that when listing a number of things, that they should be in descending order of importance. So meta, meaning the question is, what if somebody, which is more haram, a halal animal that's unslaughtered, or a pig that was slaughtered properly? Although you technically can't slaughter a pig properly or whatever, but what's more haram? The fact that it's unslaughtered is being haram is mentioned in the Quran first. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الدَّمُ وَالْمَيْتَةُ, blood, and then unslaughtered animal, then the lahm al-khinzir, then the flesh of swine. So according to this stylistic analysis of the uslub of the Arabs, we would seem to suggest that this idea of like, well, bro, it's not pork, so it's not like really haram. This is a type of approach to the Sharia that doesn't seem to show a whole lot of understanding. It doesn't seem to show a whole lot of understanding of the Quran itself. So he says that Allah, transcendent is He, above blemish, has made illicit the eating of those animals that are unslaughtered, and blood and the flesh of swine, and that thing which is slaughtered for anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if a person makes a sacrifice in the name of anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if a person makes a sacrifice in the name of an idol, or in the name of humanity or friendship or God knows what, all of those are haram and illicit to eat. Now, it's interesting, actually, in the Indian subcontinent, I believe it's not only with the people, the followers of the Sikh religion, but maybe also with some Hindus as well. There were those who, when they saw that the Muslims have a ritual slaughter method, they took offense to it, which is fine. They're obviously not Muslims, and the Sharia, at least the interpretation of the Sharia that the judges of the state took toward them, granted them that. And I don't think it's completely unreasonable, wallahu a'lam. And so the Sikhs, they have a slaughter method they call jhatka. Jhatka literally means to like snap something. And so they say that it's a sacrilege to kill an animal in the name of God. So when they slaughter, they purposely don't slaughter in God's name. If you're going to eat something, don't slaughter in God's name, because we don't kill things in God's name, and this is a sacrilege. And so they consider it to be just like a blasphemy. And so they say, if you're going to slaughter the animal without without using God's name. And that's obviously, if a Muslim does that, it's completely haram. Why? Because what do we say? We say, look, if it's bad to kill an animal in the first place, then don't kill an animal. We also consider it bad to kill an animal. And if it wasn't that our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and that the Prophet alayhi wasallam, who came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, informed us that the Lord gives an exemption to this detestability of killing an animal, and it has to follow a set form, then we would not only not slaughter according to that set form, we wouldn't slaughter at all. We would have been vegetarians, as many Muslims end up becoming when they don't have access to meat which is slaughtered in a proper fashion. And it's written in the books of tafsir that that Banu Adam was not allowed to eat meat, and eating meat is one of the concessions that was given to the believers after the time of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, as a easing of the Sharia after the catastrophic effect of the flood, which destroyed so many people, and Allah knows best. So we wouldn't have eaten anything if that was the case. And this is kind of small like little aqidah aside. This is a type of sophistry that people who believe in multiplicity of truths engage in. Just the idea of having multiplicity of truths means that there's no such thing as truth at all. Obviously, when we say this, we say with all due respect for the people who believe those religions. As human beings, we obviously don't believe in their religion, and so that's why we're not the same religion, and so we reserve the right to explain why we disagree with their religion without having to necessarily belittle or belie the individuals who are there, many of whom are people that have shown great goodwill to Muslims and to other human beings over the years. But one of the problems with having these religions that they say, well, we all believe that all these different religions are different paths to the same God, is it's a type of sophistry in which you say that there's like a multiplicity of truths and everyone has their own truth, which means there's no such thing as falsehood anymore. And if there's no such thing as falsehood, there is no such thing as truth. And it's just a fancy way of sophistry of saying that there's no such thing as truth, right? There's some people who say there's no such thing as truth. There's some people who say that truth exists, but it's unknowable. And there's people who say that there are different forms of truth. All of them are just all sophistry, which basically negate the existence of truth with a capital T. And so even the Sikhs who believe or claim to believe in all religions being a path to the same God, well, you have these type of problematic issues, like with regards to slaughter, which is that if our religion was a path to God, then you wouldn't believe it's a blasphemy. It's very interesting, actually. They have very few dietary laws when compared to Muslims and to Jews. But one of the dietary laws that they do have is that anything that was slaughtered in the name of God is completely unlawful and offensive to them in their religion. And this was brought to my attention when I was in college, and we tried to bring halal into our university, and a Sikh young woman was saying, well, like, I support you guys in, like, wanting to do your own thing and stuff like that, but like, we can't support you in this one thing because it's against our religion. And I didn't know that. I mean, I was kind of blown away. I was taken aback by that at that time, and I kind of did a little bit of research and found out that it was actually true. But then I guess we can't be a path to the same God then. And which is fine. Muslims never believed in universal salvation. Either others are right and we're wrong, or we're right and others are wrong. I'm willing to put my money on us being right and other people being wrong, with all due respect to practitioners of other religions. I feel like what we brought makes a lot more sense than what they brought. It's philosophically far more robust. And if someone wants to tell me that logic isn't everything, I agree with you. It's not everything, but without it, things by definition get a little bit wacky. So jazakumullahu khairan, we're happy with what we have. But yes, if a person were to slaughter, even if a person were to slaughter deliberately with the intention of not taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that slaughter would be haram by consensus. And there's this issue about the tasmiyah, about the name of Allah having to be mentioned at the time of slaughter. According to the Hanafis and according to the Malikis, the slaughterman has to take the name of Allah ta'ala when slaughtering. And the optimal way is to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, but it suffices to say Bismillah, or suffices to say Allahu Akbar, or even Allah, or to slaughter the name of Allah Ta'ala. If a person is tongue-tied or unable to speak, or like legitimately like forgets, like through forgetfulness, still the slaughter in the Maliki school is considered to be valid. And if a person purposely doesn't say it on their tongue, but they're a Muslim, when slaughtering, according to the Shafi'i madhab, the tasmiyah, and again, our Shafi'i mashayikh and scholars can correct me if I'm wrong. Just leave a comment and I'll make sure to mention it next time if I mention something wrong. But my understanding is that tarjih, the most correct opinion in the Shafi'i madhab is that it is a sunnah mu'akkada to say the name of Allah at the time of slaughter. And if a person doesn't say the name of Allah at the time of slaughter, the slaughter is still valid. And this has to do with an athar related from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says Bismillah is in the heart of every Muslim. And but the idea is what, even then, according to that understanding, if a person intentionally not saying the name of Allah Ta'ala at the time of slaughter, not necessarily because they're like comfortable with the idea that Bismillah is in my heart, so I don't have to say it, but like because they're just slaughtering on purpose without the name of Allah, because they just want to kill animal. I would wonder whether the Shafi'i muftis would consider this to be lawful and licit or not. So Meta is bogus. It's haram. It's as haram as pork is in a qualitative sense, and in degree maybe even more haram than pork, without getting into that discussion. So this whole thing like, well, dude, at least it's not haram, I'm not eating pork, it may not be zabiha or whatever. Like this whole halal man, zabiha man YouTube clip level of fiqh is all nonsense. This is a marketing gimmick that was started by a very particular company that wasn't run by Muslims at the time, in order to market the fact that their meat was apparently slaughtered, and make that as a value add to their marketing ploy, but not offend those people who are like, just say Bismillah, it's all halal type of people. Because getting into fiqh arguments, even when you're right, is not a way of making friends. Oftentimes, I love it, mashallah. The faqih, his sha'n is so high with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The qari of the Quran who recites beautifully, everyone will love them. All the madhahib will love them. Shia and Sunni will love them. Even a non-Muslim, even an atheist, if they hear one of our qurra who's like really jamming with them maqams and all that stuff, they'll say, that's beautiful, that's so beautiful. They'll love that person. But the faqih, mashallah, he may not even get along with people in his own madhab. uh, much less everybody else. But the fact of the matter is, it's bogus. Like you can't be eating that stuff. It's not right. It's not proper. And if the definition of meta is everything other than pig, then please do go ahead and show me where any of our aslaf or any of our books of fiqh or any of our fuqaha gave it that definition. It most certainly doesn't have that definition. And you know, anybody who wants to you know, try to have a working, viable legal system that doesn't respect precedent, then please be my guest. Go right ahead. And so we continue that anything that's slaughtered for other than Allah or in the name of anyone other than Allah is also haram. وَمَا أَعَانَ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ ترد من جبل أو وقذة بعصا أو غيرها أو المنخنقة بجبل أو غيره إلا أن يضطر إلى ذلك كالميتة وذلك إذا صارت بذلك إلى حال لا حياة بعده فلا زكاة فيها. So he says what? He says that also haram is those things that are mentioned in the ayah. That thing that fell from a height, like from a mountain, or that thing that was gored to death, like it was like beaten, you know, like someone went Rodney King on the thing, you know, beat it with a stick or something like that, and it died from the beating. Or the munkhaniqa, that thing that died from asphyxiation, or something else. That all of these things, and the thing that also is mentioned in the Quran is a natihatu, that thing that was gored, that was like hit or butt with something, or ma akala subu'u, or that thing that was eaten by wild animals and died thereof, but there's the rest of the carcasses there. All of those things are haram. I guess I saw like some sort of like video or documentary about some a tribe somewhere, I think in Kenya, that they're able to like basically like freak out lions and just walk up to a lion while it's eating a carcass and just like hack pieces of that carcass off and take it away. They're obviously not Muslims, but like if they became Muslims, they couldn't eat that anymore. They'd have to themselves slaughter, and then if they wanted to, you know, throw a cut to their old business partners, maybe they could do so after having slaughtered themselves. But you know, you can't eat something that's already been killed by an animal. And this brings up another issue in the fiqh, which is because he mentions ma'ana ala motihi, those things that was sped along to death. So it is possible that something is still biologically alive and you slaughter it, but it's still haram to eat, which, you know, introduces the idea of like a legal death. And there is a definition of legal death in the Maliki madhab for an animal, meaning a condition beyond which that animal cannot be validly slaughtered or lawfully slaughtered because its legal cause of death already has occurred, and it's just a matter of it going on to die. In the Hanafi madhab, my understanding is that that, you know, when an animal is in that situation, as long as there's any sign of life in it, you can still cut the throat and say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. As long as there's any sign of life in it, that you can still slaughter the animal, and it's called the dhakatul iddirariya. It's suboptimal, but it's still valid. In the Shafi'i school, the animal has to have, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the animal has to have something called al-hayatul mustaqirra, that it has to be able to have some stable type of life. Like it cannot have been mortally wounded. It cannot have been affected or afflicted by something that it will die of. It's just a matter of it like actually going through the process of dying of that thing. Whereas the Malikis, they have al-maqatil as-sab'a, I believe, that's 7. I believe there are 7 things that are the legal causes of death of an animal, like for example, if it like the brain casing is shattered, or if the carotid arteries are cut, or if like the body cavity is cut to the point where like the stomach and mi'ad, the intestinal tract is like showing. And so if any of those maqatil are munfadh, or have been like executed, then the animal is considered to be legally dead. And so if an animal falls from a height and just breaks its leg, but like those things haven't happened, then you can still slaughter it. But if an animal like falls from a height and its like head is cracked open and like you can see its brain, then even if it's still alive and breathing and things like that, slaughtering it is not going to render it lawful for consumption. Okay, so there's, inshallah, there's a couple of masail that are connected to this issue, but we will get to them tomorrow in the interest of not making the lesson super long or go over the hour mark, inshallah. If anyone has any questions, we will be happy to answer them. There's a bunch of assalamu alaikums in the comments. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah for all of you guys. And mashallah. And somebody noted that I was imitating Trump. Mashallah. I'm too humble to do that. I'm so humble. You never seen anyone as humble as me. I think Trump actually did that one time, which is really funny. And like, I don't think he was being sarcastic. I think he actually was like trying to explain how humble he was to people. But Allah protect us. Allah protect us. All of the things that we do and that we say that are going to look real dumb on the day of judgment or even in this world. Allah protect us. A'udhu billahi min sharri nafsi, a'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils of our own souls, and from the evil that comes from our bad deeds. Allah ta'ala, inshallah, give us protection from this illness and from all other afflictions of this world and the hereafter. Some of our brothers and sisters that are very dear to us are afflicted with it right now. Please make dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them shifa. Whoever from the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah has decreed that this should be their ticket to pass from this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from them as a form of shahada, and forgive them their sins and elevate their ranks and make it a means of expiation for them, and make the patience and the sabr easy for their family and for their loved ones they leave behind, and reward them for that as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open the doors of our masajid again soon. Allah ta'ala open the doors of His rahmah again for us soon. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us an opening for His fadl in this world and in the hereafter, from His grace that He should give to us, such a gift that we did nothing to deserve and that we can never do anything to pay back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give help to those who help the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and give help to those who are just and kind with His creation, and make us from amongst those people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use this means and every other means and no means at all, because He's the only one who can affect without means, in order to cripple and in order to restrain, in order to decimate those who wish ill and harm to this ummah and to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who wish to profit and enjoy themselves while harming others, and don't care, don't mind, and don't bother doing that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that evil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be our protection and our salvation. Allahumma la malja wa la manja minka illa ilayk. Ya Allah, there is no refuge, nor is there any safety or salvation from You except for in You. So we seek refuge in You from our own selves, and from all of the evil of Your creation, from all of the evil of those who are beneath Your might, that You have control of. Anta akhidun bin nasiyatiha, inna rabbi ala siratin mustaqim. Ya Allah, protect us from all of those things, and protect us from ever running afoul of Your grace, or running afoul of Your pleasure or Your happiness. Ya Allah, protect us and take us by the hands, and restrain us from ever running afoul of Your good pleasure in this world or the hereafter. Wa sallallahu tabarak wa ta'ala wa sallama ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma rabbana taqabbal minna warfa' darajatina wadfa' 'anna al-balaya wal mihan wal fitan. والآفات. وفقنا لما تحب وترضى به، واختم لنا بالحسنى، وارفع بأيدينا راية الإسلام. بركة الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.